So SEO from that aspect of generating traffic is pretty much dead, and it's going to continually get worse and worse over time. But here's the kicker. A lot of that stuff never really drove any revenue in the first place.
For more than 2 decades, Neil Patel has been one of the most recognized names in digital marketing, helping companies generate billions in revenue and shaping how the internet thinks about growth. So when he says SEO is dying, people pay attention.
If you don't spend the paid ad budget for the quarter, we're gonna lose it the next quarter, so spend it. And I was like, but a lot of it doesn't have an ROI. Can't you just reallocate it? And I remember I lost a few accounts for saying that. From there, I got into B2B SaaS and built an analytics tool that would show companies the ROI.
This perspective wasn't built overnight. It came from pushing back on wasted budgets, losing clients for telling the truth, and rebuilding his strategy around one thing most marketers still ignore: real revenue.
SEO for who's the best real estate agent for luxury homes in Beverly Hills, California, not dead. And here's what I mean by that.
Neil, thank you so much for joining me in Pareja Unfiltered. We're recording this one in San Antonio. You're about to go on stage with a bunch of my people. So I'm excited that we were able to make the time. Normally we shoot this in Miami, but I wanted to take the opportunity. I have followed your content for many years. I think you're known for, and you correct me if you don't want to be known that way, as one of the SEO kings. And you've also started to talk quite a bit about how it's dying as we knew it. But before we get into any of that stuff, just context. Context is my favorite word in the English language. Where did your journey start before you owned a marketing agency doing $100 million in revenue?
Sure. Funny enough, it started with a marketing agency. And when I was doing marketing back in the day, this was pre-2008, I remember working with accounts like General Motors and someone telling me, if you don't spend the paid ad budget for the quarter, we're gonna lose it the next quarter, so spend it. And I was like, but a lot of it doesn't have an ROI. So can't you just reallocate it? And I remember I lost a few accounts for saying that. So from there, I got into B2B SaaS and built an analytics tool that would show companies the ROI, and did SaaS for many years, still do SaaS. And then started an agency up all over again around 8 years ago.
And how big is that business for context?
A bit more than 1,000 people. I think we've been growing every single year. I think we hit 100 million, maybe on our 4th year. We still have a good growth rate.
And what is your kind of target client?
Our target client is anywhere from SMB to enterprises. And we do it globally in 28 countries, I think.
Nice. So talk to me about SEO. That's the thing you're known for. Yeah. As real estate practitioners, that's the business I'm in, but I always like to talk about generalities like SMB of any size. What is it? When did it die? And I'm surprised by the amount of kind of chatter and pushing and ads I see for it still. Yeah. So I have my own thoughts, but yours are probably much more detailed than mine on that.
Sure. So when you think about SEO, most people look at SEO as you create a ton of content around various topics, you rank and you generate traffic. And a portion of those people convert into customers. SEO started really evolving with AI, and it shifted, in which you're no longer going to rank on Google for things like nutrition facts about bananas. You can, in theory, still rank, but their AI overviews or ChatGPT will just answer the nutrition facts about banana. And it doesn't matter if you're, I don't know too many well-known doctors, but Dr. Oz or some longevity doctor or some other type of, nutritionist. The nutrition facts about bananas are pretty steady and have been for a very long time. You don't really need to click over to a website for that. Similar to weather, Google eventually killed the weather sites like, weather.com and all of them. You don't need to go to weather.com to see the weather in Miami, Florida, or San Antonio, or Los Angeles. You can just Google it and it'll tell you, or you can just pull up your phone and it's an app right there or on your home screen and you know the weather. So SEO from that aspect of generating traffic is pretty much dead, and it's going to continually get worse and worse over time. But here's the kicker. A lot of that stuff never really drove any revenue in the first place. But on the flip side, SEO for who's the best real estate agent for luxury homes in Beverly Hills, California, not dead. And here's what I mean by that. In general, in business, you always pick up customers through referrals by doing good work, and friends will refer others. Some people may move to a new city like Beverly Hills, which is where I live, and they'll do research on some of the best agents. That's actually how I found my agent. You can ask ChatGPT questions. You can ask Google questions. You'll look at their website, maybe their references or their ratings on Yelp. You're not only looking on Google, you're not only looking on ChatGPT, you're looking at multiple sources before you decide who. And that's still driving a lot of revenue, and that will drive a lot of revenue. It may not be 10 blue links on the homepage of Google. It could be a list that ChatGPT recommends you, or a list that Gemini, or AI mode recommends you, and go from there. But it's still a form of SEO. You're just adapting to the way platforms are now showing the results versus how they used to show the results before.
And as someone who heard that and goes, oh my God, where do I start?
Yeah.
Right. I give the advice, what I'm enjoying about LLMs, I have agents who have examples of like, hey, someone put in this prompt and my name came back. Like, who is the most investor-friendly agent in Houston?
Yep.
And one of my agents comes up. And I hear people in the audience when I tell that story go, well, how do I do that? And I said, well, I'm not an expert, but I would ask the GPT or the LLM of choice that you're making that search in, and it can generate prompts. That is my non-sophisticated suggestion. How would you answer that question?
Yeah, so the way you get mentioned in the LLM today is going to be different a year from now. So for example, on your website, you guys could create a blog article of the best agents in Houston or San Antonio or Miami or whatever it may be. And these LLMs will pull from those articles, and they'll just start repeating some of the people on the list. Now, if you just say, hey, John here is the best agent, and you don't provide much context, you're less likely to get pulled. But if you say, John is one of the best agents, he specializes in homes for these prices, very family friendly or investor friendly, and he has his vertical. His vertical could be luxury, it could be low end, it could be mid end, it could be he's great at finding homes that cash flow positive for people who are looking to rent it for investors. So the more specific you get on the article, on the pros and cons of each agent, the more likely they are to be pulled from LLMs. But here's the problem. If you wrote the article on your own website mentioning your own agents, as a business owner, would you agree that it may be a little bit biased here and there? 100%. And that's a problem. The LLMs, their algorithms right now, for a majority of them, are not looking into things like, hey, this is your own website, you're shilling your own content, your own services.
They currently are or are not?
They don't look much about that. So they'll weigh it very similar to another website mentioning you. So one way is to get your own website to talk about your own agents or your own products or your own services. Another way is you guest blog on other people's websites. You hit them up saying, hey, I want to contribute an article. And you're now getting more websites to mention you because you submitted content on those other websites. Another way is digital PR. So you go and you pitch people to write about you. Another way is getting a lot of reviews and ratings. So just like there's reviews and ratings for local businesses, even realtors. I've seen a lot of realtors being rated on Yelp, right? And review sites like that. The same goes for B2B products like G2. Crowd is an example for like B2B websites can go and get their SaaS apps rated on G2. So LLMs are pulling from all these review sites as well. They're scraping the whole internet. Another way to get mentioned, believe it or not, is ranking on Google in the top 10. Did you know the number one scraper for Google is ChatGPT? Not Bing, even though they're heavily funded by Microsoft. And they were scraping so much. Did you know Google stopped allowing you to scrape the top 100 results? They now let you to scrape the first 10 results. Then you have to go to the next page and scrape the next 10, and the next page, scrape the next 10. They did that to increase their cost and make it harder for ChatGPT to just scrape the results, because there's a higher correlation from ranking on page 1 of Google and getting mentioned by ChatGPT than there is on ranking on page 1 of Bing and getting mentioned on ChatGPT. A lot of the results from ChatGPT are straight up from Google's organic results. Fascinating.
I read a quote that you said that building a personal brand is the fastest way to get rich, but that if you want to sell a business, a corporate brand becomes more valuable.
Yeah.
Right? How do you actually navigate that? And which one do you build first?
So in today's world, it is very competitive. I would say the really only business moat left, in my opinion, is your brand. I'm not saying a personal brand. I'm not saying a corporate brand. I'm just saying a brand in general. Coca-Cola still has staying power. Nike still has staying power, even though you're wearing Alo and I'm probably wearing Vuori, or I have Vuori in my suitcase. Nike is still really well known, and so is the Jordan shoes, and so is the Apple iPhone. But when you look at today's world, if you have a personal brand and use that as a launching pad, you'll get traction really fast because people relate to people more than they relate to corporate brands. But if you have a strong corporate brand that's been around for a long time, it's easier to grow because there's trust. People would prefer buying it over a personal brand because once a person passes away, there's still longevity in that corporate brand. I'm not saying you can't get that with the individual. Like, I do believe Jordan's personal brand and his shoes will carry on even after he passes away. So is David Ogilvy when it comes to marketing and copywriting. But it's easier to do that with a corporate brand than it is with a personal brand. But that individual that we met, if he launched something with his personal brand, maybe already has, he will get instant traction and then can use that as a launching pad to invest in a corporate brand.
And how do you prioritize that? Like, as a CEO of a public company 2 years ago, I felt I didn't have a choice. I had to build a personal brand, just because as I looked at my peer group, most public company CEOs are now a brand, right?
Yes. Whether they like it or not.
Against our will,
Yes.
Kicking and screaming, because I think especially the bigger the company brand is, the consumer loses touch. And so in my business, the client are the salespeople. And so there's an attachment to personality-led businesses, right? Do you build them simultaneously? Does one beget the other and then you intentionally develop the other? Talk to me about that.
They feed off of each other. If you're posting about corporate-related content, you're also building up your personal brand. And when you personally speak, you're building up your corporate brand at the same time. They all help each other. It's more so not about which one are you trying to build. It's about what information are you putting out there? What kind of products and services are you putting out there to build that brand? So in the corporate world, a lot of a brand is evaluated on the quality of the offering that you have, right? That spreads more than any form of marketing. You offer something really amazing, word of mouth kicks in, which is the best form of marketing in my opinion. With an individual, you're tied to your product or service that you put out in a corporation. If you don't have a company, that's fine. But individuals are also very heavily tied to the education and the information and the content that they put out there. That content makes their corporate brand look better, but they're building up their personal brand at the same time because they're helping. To build up a personal brand without doing something miraculous or helping is very hard. Miraculous would be, LeBron James being just really good at basketball. Some of it is skill, some of it's luck, some of it's genetics, some of it's hard work. But not everyone can be a LeBron James. The majority of us can't. But we can all educate on what we're good at, and that's much easier for people to do. And that's lasting versus the viral effect. That's how a lot of people think you build up a personal brand. Do you remember that guy who was longboarding to work because his car broke down?
Yes.
Drinking cranberry juice?
Ocean Spray.
Yes. Ocean Spray bought him a truck. That was great for them. Their business was booming at the time because
it was like 50% increase in margin that month or something crazy.
Yes. But who remembers that person's name now, right? He was known for that. To build a lasting brand through virality is very tough. It's easier to build a brand, personal one, through education.
So on that one, I'll tell you how I couch it, and I'd love your take on it. So I agree with you that personal brand is everything. And my previous business was a data company. And 10 years ago, if I was doing a keynote, I had a slide that said data is the new oil. And I believe that that's become ubiquitous now because everyone can ask the right contextual question and pretty much pull any fact. Like there's no moat around information right now.
No, but data is the new oil. At this point, it became true. These data companies are worth an arm and a leg because it's not just the data, it's how you compute's the wrong word, analyze and comprehend the data and also create the outputs.
And if I'm talking to SMBs, like self-employed folks, whether it's a dentist, a lawyer, an accountant that has a small practice, I would tell them that today the attention they need. So 10 years ago, I would have been coaching them to build a database and drip on it. But now it's like you do need reach through social.
Yes.
The interesting moment that I'm experiencing, I'd love your take, is AI is flooding the market with generic ass content.
Yes.
And the way I bring it home for agents, which are my people, I say, look, we just had the holidays. How many of you received a shitty, generic happy holidays email from someone you don't even remember interacting with a generic photo, like, dear user, right? Like, I'm starting to feel that content show up because I think a lazy prompt is creating lazy content that is average by definition of how the algorithms are designed. How do you look at that running an agency? And again, AI should be leveraged to go faster, stronger, better, right? It's a time game. But how do you advise people to keep the human portion of the loop to still be unique and stand out? Because I believe we're just gonna, it's like email was. Now we get so much trash email.
Too much.
And I'm starting, like, the very visceral example is when Zora came out, I was entertained for about 48 hours. Now if I see the watermark, I scroll right past it.
Yep.
Right? Or I tell people, like, sample size of one. You can read the first like 2 sentences on a Facebook or LinkedIn post specifically, and you're like, oh, this is AI slop. And you just kind of scroll past it, especially because, like, that human can't spell 2 words together, period, to begin with. And now they're writing multi-paragraph content. Okay. How do you think through that? And where do you think the opportunity is for people who see that and feel overwhelmed? It's like, well, if it was noisy, it's probably going to get 10x noisier. So walk me through how you see that, how you leverage it, and how you tell someone who runs an SMB business to leverage it.
So let's first start with content pre-AI. According to a search engine journal, it was either 4.6 or 4.8 billion pieces of content were created each and every single day. This is pre-AI. All right. And when I say pre-AI, I'm talking about like pre-ChatGPT. I know people can say there's been AI for 10 plus years, but I'm talking about from it really being mainstream. That's roughly, in 2 days, that's enough content for the whole world. Now, some of that content is just someone taking a picture on their phone or a video and never being uploaded online. Now, when we look at TikTok in today's world, post-AI, you could assume that number is drastically higher because it's so much easier to create content, right? Is it double? Is it triple? Is it 10x? Who knows? But it's going in that route where it's going to start becoming double, triple, 10x if it's not already at least double. On TikTok, the younger generation is starting to boycott and use it a little bit less because they're tired of AI slop and AI content. And we're going to start seeing that trend continue. When AI content first came out, people were like, I'm going to create AI avatars and do all this. And some of them are making money, but majority of people are not building personal brands for that. And people are tired of interacting with these robots or machines. They want to interact with humans, and they're craving it more than anything else. It's like someone telling me you no longer need sales reps. You can just have AI show you everything. I enjoy interacting with the human. Maybe other people don't, but the majority of my friends, we prefer to interact with humans in real life over some bot talking to us. So 1, we already see humans being tired of that content. 2, people creating that content and putting it on their socials, we're not really seeing them get much engagement. 3, does this mean AI is dead? No, I think it's here to stay, and I bet you it's going to get even better a few years from now. But where we see it going is, some governments are already starting to push saying, hey, we think AI content should be disclosed every time it's online. So you're going to see more of that as laws get passed. And B, we don't see a world where it's AI when it comes to creating content or human. We see it's humans plus AI. AI can help you with a lot of the boring stuff and help you scale. It can help you spell check faster. But what AI does, and people forget this, it takes what's out on the web, in most cases, not all cases, because in some legal cases, we've seen AI make up their own laws.
Especially in legal cases.
Yes. But in most cases, what AI does is it goes and scrapes the web, takes what's out there, and helps regurgitate it, spin it, create something new, but based on what's out there. A human tends to create new stuff that people may be interested in versus regurgitated information. And this has nothing to do with AI, but humans at this point, when you look at the algorithm on social media, you don't see all those billions of pieces of content being published each and every single day. You only see the good stuff. The good stuff tends to be stuff that's new, stuff you haven't seen before. And a lot of that comes from a human. It doesn't mean you can't have AI help you with the editing or help you polish it up. It can definitely help you save time, but you really need the human in the loop. And without the human in the loop, we don't see too many personal brands or even corporate brands growing. Just look at Coca-Cola. Remember how they used the AI ad and they got a ton of pushback, like this is insensitive, no one likes this. They got called out for it. People want more human elements versus AI elements.
You gave context and said 1,000 people, $100 million in revenue. That I call that the highlight reel.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like I think that's one of the problems with social media is we compare ourselves to that.
Yes.
2008, I got the shit kicked out of me, lost everything, gave everything back to the bank. I'm in real estate. It was overexposed, if you will. And that turned out to be the best learning ever. Like I wouldn't trade that for the world. What private or public beatdowns have you taken, and how did that rewire you and set you up to be where you're at today?
Oh, I have taken more beatdowns than successes by far. So all the way from 2008, I shifted from agency to software, not because, I talked about how the company is like, you're fired, quarterly earning, or I'm not going to get the budget for next quarter if I spend it, right? Spend it or lose it, as people call it in the corporate world. I shifted because I lost revenue from that, plus the 2008 crash. And I was like, if I focus on software, I'll be better off. But there was a transition period of 3 years where I was really taking licks and I wasn't making any money and I was living with my parents. I also invested before Amazon did AWS. I had this concept of cloud computing. I wasn't the only one. I lost to Amazon, Microsoft, and Google before cloud computing was a thing. And I partnered up with people who weren't the right partners because they weren't experts enough. And I burned millions and millions of dollars of borrowed money at the time. I think I was in college still at the same time when that was happening. I was quite young. But I've taken tons of beats. I've raised money from investors and investors saying, hey, now that we're growing, we're going to put in a CEO that we think is more groomed, and the CEO doesn't even understand the product, but he's had a few exits. And then the CEO hires his girlfriend to redo a logo and gives her 50 grand and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is a recipe for disaster.
It's a very personal, specific example.
Yeah. And I don't blame the investors either, right? It's business is business. And when I look at today, my company, funny enough, I get a lot of entrepreneurs being like, you grew so fast. How can I grow to 100+ million in revenue? And I did it being profitable. I did it without debt. And people are like, how'd you do that? I want to do the same. What they don't realize is I've been an entrepreneur for 24 years now. I built up a personal brand, which helped me launch my last business. So that's kind of cheating. I already had money. I think I put in maybe $3 or $5 million to start the business. And then I was put in more as I needed more. So you can't really, it's not easy to replicate what I went through, right? Because I could have kept putting more money, didn't need investors, already had a whole slew of companies that wanted to work with me before I started the business. I had the companies knocking on my door. I'm like, all right, maybe at this point I should start the business. And I had people who worked at my competitors that were publicly traded. These are companies that are generating 5, 6, 7 billion plus a year, some 10+ billion in a year. And I was able to recruit some of their presidents and CEOs of different divisions and pay them more money to come with me and offer them, a better deal with no bureaucracy and more pay.
But if you had to put your finger on what's one of the most powerful lessons that rewired your brain, or when it comes to pattern recognition, you're like, yeah, there's a 0 chance I'm doing that again. Right? What of the whoopings, you're like, okay, I'm cured of this thing, that gave you focus and clarity going forward?
The biggest thing that I've been cleared on over the years is if I wanted to grow fast, I personally, as an entrepreneur, drinking too much of my own Kool-Aid, I believe there was always a newer, better way to do things and I can figure it out. every once in a while, I call this a blue moon, I would figure out a way better than existing competitors. And I think as an entrepreneur, you need to some extent drink your own Kool-Aid and believe in yourself. But what I found that actually makes you grow faster is you go and learn from the people who ran these archaic businesses and figure out what they did wrong and figure out what they also did right. There's so many learnings from existing competitors or people in your same space and some of these executives and employees that worked at some of these competitors. So when you're trying to enter a new space, I'm a big believer. I used to always believe, oh, I know everything, I can figure it out on my own. Now I'm just like, let me go and hire the people who have made all the mistakes and figured it out and bring them in and then give them my perspective and use a combo of both. I think when you take the combo of both, you're more primed to grow faster than if you try to do everything your way on your own. The other big lesson I learned, and this one was a hard one, my investors early on would always tell me, you gotta make sure you're in a big TAM. You need to make sure you're in a big TAM. And I believed if I did the best marketing, the best sales, better at operations, I could grow. But if your TAM, right, total addressable market, as you know, is small, it doesn't matter how good you are at any of those things or how good you are at executing, you're only gonna make so much money. And it never hit me when I would talk to them, like, oh, data's the future, because I used to be in data and analytics, still am. Oh, technology is the future. You know, oil is a dying business. Yeah, someone may look at oil as a dying business. Is it really though? We all still fill up our cars with oil. Yes, some of us have electric, but the use cases for oil are so vast and large. These oil companies still make an arm and a leg. And what that's taught me is not only do you need to go after a big TAM, don't underestimate boring ugly. There's a lot of money to be made in boring and ugly. I have a friend who sells light posts on the street. People think his business is boring and ugly. Doesn't have investors. Multi-billion-dollar company, not just in valuation, in revenue. And I won't talk about the bottom line, but the bottom line is massive as well, right? There's a lot of money in the stuff that we would consider boring and ugly, and we wouldn't think that are big TAMs. A big TAM people think about like, oh, everyone's talking about it. No, some of the biggest TAMs are stuff that no one really talks about, right? There's publicly traded companies like Cisco and Datadog. If I ask the average Joe if they know about them, I think Datadog's publicly traded. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. But if I ask the average Joe about these companies, they'll be like, I've never heard of them. But yet, you know, a lot of what we see today is relying on these corporations.
You've said something I agree with, that the worst pieces of advice for entrepreneurs is to diversify early. And I think and correct me if I'm quoting you wrong, but that you've said if Bill Gates hadn't sold,
he would be the richest person
in the world.
He would be the world's first trillionaire.
And how do you balance that with like adjacent vertical integration? Like, when should an entrepreneur go, you know what, that's a very creative vertical business unit to add to my stack of value proposition? So
I look at it as growth rate. If you're growing, call it you're early on and your numbers are much smaller, you're at 50 million, 10 million, 100 million, and you're growing at 50, 60% a year, 100% a year, there's no point in you to change anything. You should keep going. When your growth rate starts slowing down, 30%, 20%, and you can see the writing on the wall where you're going to start clipping this growth rate that is average for your industry, and you see that writing, in combination with you see opportunities in expansion, or you're getting your customer base to come to you and asking you for things that you don't do. It's a combo of those two things that would cause me to expand more. But to me, I just look at that as expansion. I don't look at that as diversification, like Bill Gates taking Microsoft shares, selling them, investing in Four Seasons, investing in power plants, investing in agriculture. He's one of the biggest farmland owners in the world, right? Or at least in the United States. But when you look at things like that, to me, that is very diversified. Even today, being an entrepreneur, when I look at my company, when we expand into more product offerings, it's where our customers will eventually need us to go. Maybe they don't realize it yet. Or it's where It's where our customers are saying, hey, if you offer this solution, it would make our life easier. So that way we don't have to pay 3 people and we can just pay 1 or 2, and it would make our experience better, right?
And how do you distinguish that from feature creep?
So the way I really look at feature creep is a lot of people like adding in features to the product that very few to no one's really going to use, and maybe 1 or 2 or 5% really want that feature. When I look at expansion, let's say we're, I'll give you a prime example. We used to just do performance marketing and never do the creative side. When I say never do the creative side, we wouldn't create TV commercials or any of that good stuff, or Super Bowl commercials. Now we do it all. We've done commercials like with Jennifer Lopez and tons of different celebrities. We started offering that and doing it because our customers were saying, we're paying these other companies to create the creative. We're then going to you to run the advertising for it. And a lot of times the creatives optimize for, it's optimized for what may be visually appealing. Well, you guys tend to have a conversion lens on it. Can you offer both? We want someone to create creative that does the visual aspect and that could look cool with celebrities, but also do something that has a conversion aspect as well. So we'll start looking at things like that as it's an exact shoe-in, because a lot of our customers are paying someone else to do part of the work and us for the other part. We wouldn't look at that as, hey, we're doing something for one person. We would want to make sure there's enough of that where it makes sense to combine, buy, scale up, or whatever it may be. My background's not creative. I'm a data guy from heart. I've always been a data guy since I started. I look at everything as math. I don't have a creative lens thinking about things like, oh, this would be really cool, or this t-shirt would be really cool. I'm like, just give me whatever t-shirt works every single day.
I've read that you said the person who's great from 0 to 10 million isn't typically the person that goes from 10 to 100 million, and then 100 million to a billion. How, as an entrepreneur, do you realize that you're the bottleneck and decide to step in or out? And again, hearing your story, sounds like it was very personal when the VCs decided for you. Okay. I don't know that most entrepreneurs have the self-awareness, because you described it as drinking your own Kool-Aid. I call it like there is a necessary amount of delusion.
Yes.
Or you won't make it, then you won't get out of bed.
You won't even start.
How do you recommend that people, whatever part of their journey they recognize what they're like? I've exited multiple times and I realize I don't like 0 to 1, right? And in this current chapter of my life professionally, I'm scaling a public company in the B's of revenue. And I have found that I enjoy that way more, right? Let's like the true obsessive 0 to 1 entrepreneur, the 0 to 1 is a special gift. Yes. And by the way, I've witnessed that person get really bored and either subconsciously, intentionally blow everything up to have the adrenaline rush of fixing it or starting it all over again. So how would you advise someone to be self-aware of that? And then, like, are you the one that takes it to a billion? Do you care if it goes to a billion? Or do you progressively grow organically now?
Yeah, so the way I look at it as an entrepreneur is, if you're growing and you're in the driver's seat and your growth is fine, you can keep doing what you're doing. But what you'll find is as your company scales, there's typically some bottlenecks. And as these bottlenecks keep increasing, or you're having to spend a majority of your time doing stuff that you're not the best at. So for example, with me, I'm a terrible manager. So the moment I know my job shifted from working on product to having to manage more, I'm like, okay, it's time for me to get out of the seat because I'm a terrible manager, and it's actually going to slow down the growth of the company versus if I just focus on what I'm the best at. But it's just being self-aware. And what I tell entrepreneurs is, it's not that you're not in a position of control anymore. You're not the CEO. You're still the founder. You can go and do whatever you want. And a good example of this is Sergey Brin. He came into Google, started working on Gemini, cleaned things up. He couldn't deal with some of the bureaucracy. He told Sundar, he's like, you go deal with these people. I don't want to deal with this anymore. He's like, they're getting in my way. Sundar went and figured it out, right? And he went and look at what Google's doing now with Gemini. Again, he's a founder. He's not the CEO, but you can still have a lot of control. Just put people in where you suck or where you hate spending your time. And what you'll find is you'll just grow faster, and naturally you'll build a great team around you and people who support you. Forget titles. I think titles are irrelevant, and that's bad to say as a founder because I know it matters in the corporate world. But as a founder, you'll at least find people who can support you, and who cares what the titles are? You still are the founder and you still own a good chunk of the company.
I've gone through my personal evolution as an entrepreneur starting very young. And you described earlier how it wasn't fair because you had capital and you had know-how and almost demand from the market. I would call it privilege and not and something you earned. Yeah. Right. So like today, I'm very intentional about not missing anything for my kids. And it literally will affect our global calendar a year out, where it's like, hey, like if we're doing it that week, I'm not participating just because it's spring break and I'm not skipping that period. How do you advise an SMB founder who's in the grind, who's got young kids? Because I've heard you talk about your family similarly to how I talk. How do you balance, or you suggest balance? Because I think we as millennials are different breeds of parents than the boomers before us who built these iconic brands, but their kids don't know them.
Yes. So I would recommend that if you're starting off and you don't have a ton of capital, whether I'm not talking about just on the business side, I'm talking about even personal side, you're going to have to grind it out and you have no choice and you're going to miss some days. But when you're there in the moment with your family, make it count. I see people who are around their kids 24/7 and they're on their phones all the time. I don't spend that much time with my kids compared to those people because I had to travel for work and we have offices everywhere. But when I'm eating dinner with my kids, I really do make it count. When I pick my kids up, I'm asking them about what their day is. I'm not listening to the radio or the news. I'm asking who they played with, what did they learn? And usually I'll joke around with them because if I go in straight into what did you do today or what did you learn, they'll give me a silly answer. But if I discuss random things or ask them some trivia questions or joke around, then they'll open up a little bit more. So the first thing is make the moments count when you are with them. So it's not just the quantity of time, it's the quality. Two is if you don't have a ton of capital, savings or whatnot, you're going to have to grind it out and you're going to miss a lot of the moments. Three, when you start making some money, create some sort of work-life balance. That doesn't mean you need to be there for everything, but be there for the important moments. So my wife always tells me, it's okay if we miss Thanksgiving. She's not a big turkey person. She's like, but you need to be there for the kids' birthdays and Christmas. So I have 2 kids, so 3 days. Non-negotiables, don't miss. And during summers, she's like, we can adapt around your schedule because kids are, don't have school. Let us know 2 trips that we can take during summer. Spring break, she books in my calendar in advance. Book that out, spend some time with the kids. So I'll make sure I spend the time. But similar to you, and I could be putting words in your mouth and I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to take a guess here based on what you said. If someone told me, and I had this option, hey, you can make $100,000. I think I had to go to Brazil to do it last minute. And I forgot what company it was. Maybe like Toyota or something like that. I promised my son I would teach him how to ride a bike. I taught my son how to ride a bike. The money wasn't worth it. It's a lot of money, don't get me wrong. But to miss that experience with my son, and yes, the money's a lot to me or anyone, I'd rather experience that with my son because it's not going to change my life. I also don't have the ambition to work hard like an Elon Musk anymore, right? I still work a lot of hours. I don't know a week where I work 40 hours. Even when I'm on vacation, I'm still working and I'm probably putting in 50, 60 hours a week, consistently. But I don't have what Elon Musk does to just grind it out, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like that's not me. I need some sort of balance, but you just got to figure out what works for you. And this is also why I'll never go and start another company again. I'm like, it's just easier to go buy existing company and then grow it. I don't want to deal with the grind and the long hours of that. I'm like, I'd rather just go hire a management team that I know to help me out from day one, that I trust, and work on the areas that I enjoy working.
Well, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you for sharing that. And I look forward to continuing to collab and hear what else you have to say.
Thank you.